Well, hello, studio teacher friends. Welcome to the Beyond Measure podcast, your weekly shout out of solidarity in the music teaching profession. My name is Christina Whitlock. I am your host and self-appointed anytime piano teacher friend. If you have been searching for like-minded teachers who embrace things like humility, curiosity, and the fact that we will never know it all, look no further because you have found him. Welcome to your people. Seriously, some of the best teachers from around the globe have rallied around this show, and we're so glad you're here with us today. So, without further delay, let's get on with the show. So here's the thing about teaching an instrument. You pretty much can do it in a vacuum, meaning you can run your studio and teach your students without connecting with other teachers. You do not have to be part of professional associations or read pedagogical journals. You do not have to have an online presence at all. You do not have to attend conferences, you don't have to listen to podcasts, and you do not have to continue taking lessons of your own. You can actually teach with the same books that you have been using for the last 20 years. You can technically teach the same way that you have been teaching altogether for the last 20 years. You can keep the same policies, voice the same complaints to your spouse over and over again. You can host the same events, play the same games, and make the same jokes without the input of any other colleague. It's totally possible. But, friends, you are missing out on so much. Let me be clear, it's not that newer is always better. I'm not saying your teaching repertoire needs an overhaul, and I'm not saying you need new jokes. Yours are probably hilarious. But I've known life as a solitary piano teacher, and I've known it with an abundance of teacher friends, and there is no contest which one yields a more enjoyable experience. It's basically the entire premise of this show, right? I know I'm not saying anything new here, but I wanted to offer a little nudge in your direction today. There are many reasons why teachers neglect to connect with other teachers. Sometimes we're intimidated and feel insecure opening ourselves up to other teachers. Sometimes it's the polar opposite. Maybe we feel like other teachers have nothing valuable to offer us. We don't know what we don't know, right? I think a lot of teachers out there have a limited view of teaching their instrument, and they have no idea how much exploring other methods and research can enhance what they're already doing. There's the fact that we all lead busy lives, and sometimes we just don't know how to work professional connections into our calendars, or we're so exhausted that we just don't want to. That's a big one, and of course, it's why I call myself your anytime piano teacher friend over here, because if nothing else, you can come hang out with me here on the podcast whenever it works for you. All of these things play into the reason that some teachers remain in their own personal teacher bubbles. Yet sometimes I think teachers simply don't know what's out there or who they can connect with. And I guess that's what I want to hammer home today. Because I've talked about connecting with local teacher colleagues before, even the challenging ones, and I will link those episodes in today's show notes. I've also talked about the importance of consistently mentoring others and being actively mentored yourself. I'll link that episode in the show notes too. I recognize that this idea borders on preaching to the choir, since, hi, you're already here, being part of my teacher circle. But I want to challenge you today to think about teachers in your circle of influence who would benefit from more teacher community. Who do you know who teaches in a vacuum? Who stays in their own teacher bubble? You might think that they don't want to have anything to do with you, but in my experience, that is not often the case. Because I learned the ropes of piano teaching on my own at a very young age with little to no mentorship, I didn't know that there was another way for a long time. I didn't know how electric I would feel when I began to connect with other people who experienced the same frustrations and uncertainties I did as a teacher. I didn't know how amazed I would be to find out that some of them had some pretty great solutions to areas I was weak in. And I definitely didn't know what a sigh of relief I could give once I knew that it was safe to stop pretending I knew everything. That's a big one, right? It's a huge stumbling block to community amongst teachers. Because if we are too worried about projecting our own competencies onto one another, there is no room for genuine connection. Teacher communities should not be about one-upping each other or talking at one another. It shouldn't be about who is teaching the most students or making the most or the least amount of money. I remember floating around at conferences and teacher meetings in my late teens and earliest 20s, trying so hard to make sure everyone knew I was experienced and knowledgeable and had earned my place in their circle. I'm not even sure when or why my perspective did such a 180, but I am so thankful to have actual proof that humility brings far more growth in teacher communities than anything else. From the beginning of this show, I have named humility as a core value of every piece of content I want to produce. And it never fails that the more open I am with you about my own insecurities and weaknesses, the richer the conversations we have. I write these One Thought Thursday e-letters each week, and the more open I am in that email, the more responses I receive. So again, back to this call to action I have for you today. I am curious about the teachers you know who are not actively involved in any kind of teacher community. There are lots of them out there. I want to embolden you to reach out to them in whatever way you're comfortable and let them know that you would love to trade ideas or stories sometime. Maybe you invite them to a teacher meeting you're part of, or maybe you just ask them out for coffee or give them a call on the phone sometime. Even just texting them a link to a podcast or a YouTube channel or something else that you like could be the start of something great. As I said earlier, I'm a firm believer that our own best teaching experience will be unlocked when we are actively mentoring someone else and when we are also being actively mentored by someone else. This doesn't have to be a big formal thing, but I am curious. What teachers in your life are you helping lately? And who has been helping you? If you don't have answers in either of those columns, it's really something to consider as we kick off another school year. Let me also say, when it comes to helping other teachers, sometimes it's as simple as lending a listening ear or trading stories. You don't have to know more than them or have any specific solutions. Just providing a safe place to bounce ideas around is enough. It's actually one of the most beneficial things you can do. Now, please note, whether we like to admit it or not, teachers are not always the best listeners when we get together. Look, we guide conversations and action plans in our work all day long. So when more than one of us get in the same space, There's often a lot of jockeying for position in the conversation. Try not to get frustrated by this, but take note of how important it is to truly listen to the teacher across from you rather than simply thinking about what you can say next. We call this listening to learn rather than listening to respond, right? Huge thing in the music teacher world, and we're all guilty sometimes. But despite the fact that we all have moments where we can be prone to dominate conversation, committing to learning and growing together in our imperfections is one of the best things that we can do for our own well-being. Not to mention the new skills that we're going to end up bringing to our lessons. This is no small thing. I know there are so many teachers out there who are not connected to other teachers in any way. So how do we reach them? I mean, this is seriously a question that keeps me up at night. Based on the fact that you are listening to this show right now, I'm hoping that you count me on your personal list of teachers who help you. And there are so many of you who help me right back. We just had our August meetup for Teachers Teaching Teachers over in the Beyond Measure community on Patreon last week, and oh my word. We ended our session and I was on cloud 9 for the entire day. And I know it wasn't just me because many of you messaged me all afternoon telling me the same thing. The thing about talking with other teachers is this. Sometimes you learn about whatever topic you've set out to learn, sure. But really, I always feel like my biggest takeaways come from one small comment that someone makes. They'll say something almost inconsequential that spawns a big old idea in my head, and then it's off to the races from there. And our monthly meetups in the Beyond Measure community are so that for me. I take so much inspiration from the teachers that are there. So, incidentally, access to all those meetings, plus a giant collection of additional resources, is currently yours for just $6 a month, and you can cancel that anytime. So if you are looking for some teacher community yourself that you can access on your own schedule with no commitment whatsoever, please do consider joining us there. Not because I'm over here just trying to sell you my stuff, but because I am genuinely so proud of the work that we are doing over there together. And I do mean together. The magic of that community comes from the people who are in there supporting it. We've covered every aspect of studio teacher life in one way or another in that group, and there are many teacher friends waiting to learn alongside you there. Plus, it's just worth mentioning that joining the community is also your way of supporting this show and ensuring that I can afford to keep producing it. So I do hope you'll give it a try. If you're already in the Beyond Measure community and you love it, please consider telling teachers in your circle of influence about it. Now, again, this all sounds self-serving, but I promise it's not intended that way. This obsession that I have with building community amongst music teachers fuels so much of what I do and how I choose to show up in this world. I am thankful every day for the friends that I have made through this show, even those of you who are shy and who have never actually reached out to me. I just love you so much, and we are so much better together. So, again, can we do this teaching thing on our own? Yeah, but we're going to feel alone and probably worn out and probably taken advantage of. Ours is a profession built on giving of ourselves to others, and I find teacher community to be essential if we're going to stay content in this work for the long haul. School teachers will tell you that their fellow teachers are their lifeline. Being able to exchange looks of overwhelm to one another as they pass in the hallways or as they drag themselves to their cars at the end of a long day. Like that camaraderie is really important to getting through that work. And most of us don't get that in our own studios. We are constantly around other people in our work, yet they're people who hold hefty expectations of us. So it's not like they have much empathy to offer us in our teacher struggles, right? So I leave you today with those two questions. I've posed them on the podcast before, and I'm sure I'll pose them again someday. But who are you mentoring, and who is mentoring you? If you do not have answers to both, reach out to me and let's get you figured out, okay? In the meantime, let's share a toast. Studio music teacher friends from all around the world, we are part of an incredible community. The very nature of being a music teacher means that we are connected by a shared desire to impact lives and make the world a better place. Sure, we're a quirky, eclectic bunch, but we also have much in common. We also have a lot to teach and learn from one another. So let's recommit today to dropping the act of having everything figured out. Let's not let insecurity get in our way either. Let's be great listeners to one another and initiate opportunities so those who feel on the outside of our circles begin to feel included. Let's share resources that we think are valuable, and let's continue to support one another with that emphasis on humility. Cheers to you, my astonishingly brilliant teacher friends. Hear, hear. That's what I have for you today, friends. I hope I've inspired you to seek out the teachers that you know who are teaching in a vacuum. We won't win them all over, I know, but we can sure try, right? Our world is turning more tumultuous by the day, and it is more important than ever that we help one another through this teacher life. You can find links to all the ways I try to help in today's show notes. Those are found at christinawhitlock.com/episode 184. Again, that's christinawhitlock.com/episode 184. I'll let you get back to your regular life now, but I'm looking forward to hearing how your teacher communities expand this year. Onward and upward, my friends. Let's go do great things.